Good morning, ACU of Texas. My name is Brittany Dale, and I'm applying for your SVP of Lending role. Just a quick one-liner to tell you a little bit about me. I'm a numbers and budgeting guru. I love a good spreadsheet. I love a good cup of coffee. I love an iced Americano to be exact. I'm at a coffee shop right now. It's called Summer Moon out here in Leeds City, so I highly recommend you try that. As far as my experience in lending, I started out at State Employees Credit Union in 2014. It's based out of North Carolina. I started out as a financial services representative, and I worked my way up to the consumer lending manager. I did a variety of roles, both within the branch and remotely and in the call center. Over the years, I gained experiences in taxes. I worked on the teller line, did a bit of collections, did financial counseling, which was one of my favorites, and I'll add more to that later on in this video. And I ultimately worked in mortgages as well. All right, to tell you most about my experience in lending, I want to focus on two stories. And bear with me here, I do have a little bit of notes that I'm reviewing as I do this video as well. So the first story I have is a younger girl. This was earlier on in my career, probably about 2016, 2017. She was fresh out of high school. She came into me and she was looking for her first loan. I think she was looking for a line of credit, something to help her with school. So I remember working with her and her mother and getting her approved. Now at this time I didn't have what was called my own set of lending limits, which allowed me to approve the loans individually. I had to work with a senior loan officer to get those loans approved. Anyways, I worked with her for several years. It was quite the journey. I did her first car. Ultimately ended up doing her first mortgage. Really the main point of this story is it was just really joyful to build a relationship. Not only did I do lending for her, I ultimately ended up doing lending for the majority of her family. They all kept coming to me. A big part of lending and building relationships is sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to tell the member this is not in your best interest, which I did a lot of with her. I remember her requesting a second car, and I was like, well, you know, you're not quite ready for a second car, but let me tell you how we can get you there. Another member that I really had the joy of working with is, I called her my work grandmother. She came to see me at least once a week, and how I was introduced to her is I was actually in the back working in our call center as well at the time, and it was just a typical call. She was just calling to ask about some transactions on her account, and I noticed while looking through these transactions she had very large payments going to some local lenders. Kind of like your payday lender sort thing. So I immediately saw that as a huge red flag. She was elderly, she was on a fixed income, so I just said, hey, you know, can I run some numbers for you? I looked at some of her older credit reports, which were still relevant, and I was able to consolidate some debt for her, which was a win-win for both of us. A highlight of my day and definitely a highlight of hers. Ultimately, I was able to help her find a new vehicle. I even called and did negotiations with some local dealerships to find her a good deal. I also helped her shop for insurance to get a good deal there as well. I know personally, dealerships, even insurance agencies, can sometimes take advantage of people who don't necessarily know what they're looking for or what they need. And she didn't have any family who could assist her. So that was one of the highlights of my career as well, was being able to work for her. All right, now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience in mortgage lending. So after a couple years of doing consumer lending, I started to feel stagnant. And I was like, you know what, I need a challenge. I want to do something else. So I was a go-getter. I practically had to beg the senior staff to train me. It wasn't necessarily something that was an immediate need in our branch at the time, but I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow. So I all but hounded probably one of our senior staff, like, hey, can you train me? I'll sit with you, you can shadow me. And that's how I learned. And I ultimately, really gravitated towards mortgage lending. It kind of became my specialty, my thing. But for me, mortgage lending, it's more than just the mortgage. It's a package. So what can you do for this member? There was hardly a mortgage that came across my desk that didn't end up leaving with a debt consolidation or an auto loan refinance. So really mining that application and looking for things the members didn't know they needed. This brings me back to a story very early on in my career. It was my first year at the credit union, and I remember my manager saying, hey, you're doing great, but one thing I really want you to start working on is mining the application. And at the time I was like, what is he saying? What does this even mean? I was very young at this age, but it was neat to see it come full circle. When I did the mortgages, I really mined those applications and learned what it meant to find something the member didn't know they were looking for. That's one of the things I love most about mortgages is, hey, they're asking for a mortgage, but hey, let's consolidate some debt. Let's lower your auto loan payment. Let's give you the package deal. So for me, being a leader is, and I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but being a leader is just teaching those under you what it means to build relationships with the members, looking for things that they didn't think they needed. So that's the first part of this video interview, and in just a moment we'll go on to the second question. All right, so second question, leadership philosophy. This is honestly the one I was most excited to answer because super passionate about this. So as far as my favorite leadership quote, Richard Branson, if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your members or the clients. My personal favorite quote is human first, employee second. So this is how I lead teams, whether they're big or small. We just have to remember that they are human, and we need to take care of them. So also something I reference quite a bit is Southwest Airlines, their transparency policy. This is one of the reasons why I've flown with them for almost 10 years now. It's super easy. There's no hidden fees. If you need to change a flight, if you need to cancel a flight, they make it easy and the process is smooth. So for me, this is in a nutshell how I like to lead a team. Just take care of them. It's that simple. I don't think there's any hidden secret to being a leader. I think if you focus on that, everything else will naturally fall into place. Also too, I'm a big team player for quality. Never gonna get focused on quantity. I wanna see 6 really good mortgages instead of 20 just subpar mortgages, or any loan for that matter. Okay, so the third question, innovation and adaptability. Describe a time when you implemented a new strategy or innovation and what was the outcome. I'm going to focus on a process that I implemented at Smart Financial Credit Union. So when I was hired, my manager, the chief credit officer, the one goal he gave me was, hey, I want to get our approval rate to 60%. I was like, okay, how can we do this? One thing I will do is when I'm introduced to a new role, I'm not going to come in and start making a ton of changes right away. I like to get my feet wet, get a feel for the employees, see how they work, see what their environment is. I also find it can kind of rub people the wrong way when you just come in and no one knows you and you're just making all these changes. So I got hired in April and I gave it a couple months. I just really kind of flew under the radar, just kind of got to know my employees, their working styles, what was working, what wasn't. So So one thing I started doing, which wasn't a requirement at Smart Financial, but something we did do at State Employees since we were a larger company, was denial reviews. So a component of fair lending and risk. What I did is I started reviewing a certain number of denials each month, just to see, like, hey, what are our missed opportunities? Where are we falling short? Why are we quite not hitting that 60% approval ratio? So I started putting out a report in the month of July, just letting my employees know, like, hey, these are the loans that I think we can do a little bit more with. I think we missed this here. And these are the things that we can work on. So it was about 5 or 6 loans each month, loans that were then, originally denied. And then I ultimately said, hey, I think we can approve this. I think we can do something. Here's what I think you missed. So the good news is for the past 3 months, August through October, I don't quite have the numbers for November, although they may be there today since it's December 1st, we hit that 60% approval ratio. So we were able to meet that goal and hopefully continue on that trend for the rest of the year. All right, so this is the second part to the third question. This is something I plan to do in 2025. I currently work with the AVPs and VPs of the retail service delivery team. So that's our front end staff that oversee our relationship specialists and relationship managers, those who work directly with the members. I meet with them monthly already to discuss issues, discuss any ideas that we can pass back and forth. So one thing I'd like to do in 2025 is visit each of the branches individually and shadow the employees. So for me, it's all about the loan interview. So it's kind of hard to make a good loan decision if you don't have a good loan interview. So I really just want to see where they're at, what questions are they asking, what questions are they not asking, and see how we can improve that process. I think that's one of the things, in addition to the denial reports that I've put out monthly, that's really going to boost those approval ratios. And for me, this is so much more than the numbers. Like, of course, it's great to hit a number, but ultimately what's going to come out of this is we're going to have great member experience. So one thing I've found, if you have a great loan interview up front, you don't have a lot of back and forth, which can really just ultimately impact the member experience and how much they get out of it and how much we get out of it as an employee. So I think this is going to be beneficial for both parties. And if I don't get the job, I'll let you know how it goes in 2025. Okay, so moving on to lending trends. I'm going to give you one simple answer here, and I think it's the obvious. So what is the future of lending, and how can we use this to our advantage, and how would I use this to your advantage? So AI ultimately is something banks, credit unions, fintech, we're all going to have to embrace. I don't think we can get away with it. I know credit unions tend to shy away from technology a little bit longer than your banks do, but I think this is something we should embrace, and for a number of good reasons. The main thing is we can use it as a tool to increase human touch. Lending needs that. It needs human touch, it needs empathy, it needs dedication. So now that we're not tied up in the legwork of lending, we can be financial coaches, so we can move forward with lending that way. This is one thing I personally enjoy the most because I love budgeting, I love good spreadsheet, and this is one thing I would absolutely love to see be developed as a department at your credit union if you don't already have one. So at State Employees Credit Union, we had a program where several of our lenders became accredited financial counselors. I was one of those. I loved it, I enjoyed it, I fully embraced it. And I think if you have the right employees doing that in your branches or in your call centers, it can do wonders for your membership. So for me, I think it's just a transition. We're no longer going to be bankers. We're no longer going to be relationship specialists. We're no longer going to be relationship managers. I think with the help of AI taking up some of that legwork and hard work, we're going to transition to financial coaches, and that's the future of banking, which I'm personally very excited for. Okay, so closing question. So I'm sure after this video interview, there's something very obvious, the elephant in the room. No, I do not have any commercial lending experience. Am I 100% qualified for this position? Absolutely not. Will I 100% be dedicated to this role in your company? Yes. I'm going to show you a clip at the end, and this is in a nutshell how I feel in general. So in the workforce, in applying for jobs. It's a clip from the movie The Pursuit of Happiness. It's one of my favorite movies. Just his true dedication to learning something new and overcoming the many struggles that can be thrown at you in life. So not to get personal, but I'm gonna throw that in here at the end. So for me, being a leader it's not about how much you know, it's how much you're willing to learn. I think that's what makes the true difference. So I think with this mindset, I'll be a valuable asset to your team. So I'm excited for you all to watch this. It's December 1st. If I don't speak to you again, I hope you all have a good Christmas. And yeah, happy holidays.